Well, that's not always. See, reading room. If anyone can hear me, we are starting. I'm getting the students in now, which is being more difficult than I thought it would be. Hmm. For some reason, some people have only their first name is showing up on the waiting list. Maddie, I don't have you. Do you have another first name? I haven't heard anyone. You might need to, if you want to make a comment, go down to the left and on the bottom left, and there will be a mic. Kutsar. Maddie, if you can hear me, I don't know who you are. I don't have you on my list. Kutsar. I don't have you on my list either.
Victoria Lashina?
You're in, Victoria.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so when you're done talking, turn your mic off, because only have it on when you want to talk. Angelica, there we go. All right, I'm going to bring Maddie and Kutsar in, find out who they are. Maddie, can you hear me? Just nod your head yes if you can hear me. Maddie? Maddie, I don't know who you are. You're not on my list. Maddie, can you hear me? All right, I guess I'm just going to leave her in. I don't know who she is for the time being. Heina. I don't have a Heina either. I'll let her in and try and talk to her. Maddie, I don't have you on my list, so unless I know who you are, I'm going to remove you from the class. Can you nod your head if you can hear me? That's weird. I don't really know how to do this, so. Kutsar, can you hear me? Actually, I don't even see Kutsar's name on here now. Oh, it's Diana Kutsar.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I didn't have you on my list. Oh, there you are. No, sorry, my mistake, because you came up only as Kutsar, not Diana Kutsar. You're fine. Hina, Hina.
I can hear you.
What is your full name?
It's Karen Neal. I just go by Hina.
Okay, yeah, Karen, I have you on my list. And then Maddie.
That's can you
There
hear
you
me?
go. Yes, now you can hear me. What's your name?
I'm actually it's Dana Hughes. That's my daughter who also is doing Zoom meetings.
So Dana Hughes is who.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think we have everybody who was on the wait list now. So Maddie and Angelica, you have your microphones on. If you go to the bottom left, you can mute the microphone and only unmute the microphone when you have a question to ask or some comment to make. All right, let's begin. It looks like everybody's off. I don't know if you can see everyone. You should be able to see me, and I can do screen shares and other things. Actually, let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to pull up, if I can, the syllabus, and I'm working on it. Give me a minute. I'm not real good at this. All right, do you guys see my syllabus? Okay, I saw Maddie shaking her head. I don't know about anyone else. This is going to be an unusual term because everything's going to be online, so please be patient. We will be meeting at the regular time for both the lecture and the lab on Zoom. And that isn't required, although for the lab, you will have to finish the labs, so that part is required. I'm not going to give any points for attendance this time. And if you are unable to attend, I will try and post the, sorry, nobody's here. I don't know if you can see me scratching my eye there. I'm going to try and post the video to my, what do they call that, YouTube site. And I haven't learned how to post the captions yet. I'll try and do that. And once I have that, I can then post it to Canvas. But I'll give you a link to my YouTube site so that you can obtain these videos. And on YouTube, they won't have captions because, like I said, I've got to learn how to do that. And it's not intuitive. I couldn't figure out how to do it. I have attempted and I didn't do it. All right, so let's go on and talk about my syllabus. The lecture is 2075, which some of you may have never signed up for. All of you signed up for 2081, the lab. And because of computer problems, you're not going to see a lecture website on Canvas. So the microbiology instructors played the determining factor and decided that how we'll do this is we will lecture in the lab. So all of you signed up for 2081. There is a lab site on Canvas, which I'm sure you got to, and we're going to lecture on it. So I have both lecture materials and lab materials on that site. And if you were intending to have another lecturer instructor, I'm sorry about that. You can email me if there's concerns, and I will contact the other lecturer instructor who you want to be in, and maybe we can move you if they have room, because you'd have to take both the lab and the lecture from them. It would be a lot easier if you just stayed in the lab and then you get lecture from me as well as the lab. But like I said, if there's concerns about that, then contact me. There's my email, which you've already gotten email from me. We will be, I do have an office. Of course, the campus is closed, so I can't get to it. But if you have concerns and you want to meet with me, let's make an arrangement. We can talk by Zoom. If you don't want to do that, we can email each other. All right, since there don't appear to be any comments, we'll move on. The textbook, you can read that on what it is, essentially a microbiology introduction by Tutoria Funk and Case is our textbook. There's a couple of ways you can do it. The easiest way is to get the printed text in the bookstore, and don't ask me how you do it with the bookstore. I don't know if they're sending it to you or they let only a few people in this bookstore at a time, I don't know. You can also get the e-textbook, and you can find the textbook online. Hopefully you've already done this if you don't have it and you're planning on getting it online, where you could rent it or buy it. Generally, you'd have to get the 12th complete edition of the textbook online. You won't have the third custom edition made for Clerk College. There are some optional texts that you can get. You can read about that. Let me state that other than the textbook, I think everything you need will be on Canvas. So take a look at that. Go to clark.edu and then click the link for Canvas and log on to Canvas. I believe all other assignments and everything will be on Canvas. The exception will be as if I email it to you. And maybe somebody could answer this. I've been emailing you both through probably your regular email as well as the course website, and I am not getting the emails in the class website. So you go logging into Canvas website. Are you guys getting email in the Canvas website? All right, Maddie nodded her head yes. So
Yeah, I'm getting your emails through Canvas.
okay. I was not getting them, so I wasn't sure that that email was working. So I'm glad to know that it is. My apologies if you've gotten it double, but I wasn't sure you guys were getting it. And now that I hear that you are getting it through Canvas, I will email you. And I don't know why, especially when I'm requesting that I get the email on Canvas, I'm not getting it. All right. This other material, I'll let you read the course description, the student course outcomes. It's not anything you will be tested over. We should probably talk a little bit about course policies and suggestions. If you are so sick that you do not want to get on Zoom and take the class, and you don't want to take like a quiz or some assignment that's due on the date, email me and I will try and make arrangements for you to have an alternate date. Now, I'm not going to do that for most quizzes, but especially if you have a fever or something like that, I will make exceptions. But I want to try and keep the quizzes as they are, because the microbiology instructors got together, and you're going to hate this. We decided that to reduce the chance of cheating, that when we have a quiz, we decided to make the quiz available for only 24 hours, and the quiz must be taken within that 24 hours, or you are not allowed to take that quiz. And that's something we sort of came to just because the class is moving online. I have an alternative to that, and I'll talk about that later. But so I really, unless you're really, really sick, I want you to try and get the quizzes done when they're supposed to be, and and they are on the schedule, which is the last page of the syllabus. And we'll talk more about that later. But the idea is that we're trying to reduce on the cheating. And this was just a policy that was set in place, and it is not a very online class, I know, and I will talk about how to make the class more online, but you won't necessarily like that either, and so we'll talk about that later. All right, preparation for the class. You'll find that this class will be very busy. That's true of all of the more advanced biology courses like A and B and microbiology. So try and pre-read the materials beforehand, like try and pre-read what we ask you to read. Oops, I got one more student trying to come in. Just a moment here. Up, I just lost that. Great, how do I get that? Let me stop sharing and see if I can get to the well, I'm not real good at using Zoom, so.
Professor, when you want to stop sharing, there's going to be a little bar on the top. And then it's going to give you.
Stop sharing. Okay, there we go.
Yep.
Thank you. Now how do I get to somebody who was in the class? Oh, here we go. No, that's chat. Manage participants. I don't have anyone there now.
Oh,
There we go.
I sent you a message.
There we go. Paul Schultz, can you hear me? Paula Schultz, maybe? P.S. Schultz. All right, you're in the class now. Hopefully you're getting it. Let's go back to the screen share. Thank you for your help.
Professor, real quick question for you. If someone has a question in the class, would you rather us interrupt, raise our hands? I know there's a raise hand option in here, but I don't know if that's how you want us to do it.
Yeah, you should open up your mic and ask a question. Like there is a chat room there, but I can't see it when I'm sharing. So I'm not going to even attempt to do it when I'm screen sharing. So if you have a question, you really want to open up your mic and ask the question, and that I will hear. Now my point is that when you do that, when you're done talking, shut down your mic so that your noises won't be heard by the other students. Okay? Any questions? So I really won't look at the chat room, and there is a raise hand, but when I'm trying to share things, which I'm trying to do now, it doesn't, I won't see that either. And I'm not real good at using Zoom. Oops, I went to the wrong one. Here we go. All right, so I was talking about preparation for class, and just realize this class will be very busy. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Attendance is highly recommended, participation highly recommended. The class will be meeting at Zoom during the normal times. That's 5 o'clock for the lecture, 6:30 for the lab. What else do I want to say about that? I won't be taking attendance points this term, but attendance is highly recommended. Like I'll be discussing things that you'll be expected to know, and I suppose you could get it if you were to check the video, which will be at my YouTube site, which I haven't given you yet, and I'll try and email that out. Probably after the lab today. I don't think I'll have time to do that between lecture and lab. Student responsibilities, let's briefly go through that. Pre-read the lab modules. You probably should pre-read the assignments, the worksheets and things like that, and bring them to class, especially if you have questions. It's not terribly important. You could read the lab while you're doing it because this is an online class and you'll just spend additional time in the lab. And I think that would be fine. Although it'd be better to pre-read it beforehand and then you can ask me questions during Zoom. Otherwise, you'd have to email me the questions. You should know the due dates of assignments. They're listed in the schedule, which is on the last page of this syllabus. If you miss a class, you have to learn the material on your own. You should keep all papers until the final grade is given. So if there's any question about it, you can show me what the grade was on a returned assignment. And essentially that means that you'd be keeping assignments online or in email. And I'm sorry, I forget that I'm not the only one here. I'm scratching my face, which is easy to do when you think you're the only one here. The laboratory safety rules, they don't have to be followed because you won't really be in a lab, but you do need to know them because we're requiring that you know them because you are taking a microbiology lab. All interaction should be professional, that is student to student, student to instructor, and of course instructor to student. Meaning non-confrontational, non-offensive language, and just be polite, even if you strongly disagree. You should read about the course withdrawal. Hopefully nobody will, although if you do, I hope you withdraw in the first week because only in the first week, and that's actually deleting the class, you'll get 100% refund. If you have to withdraw after that, you have to pay for the class, but at least you'll get a W instead of a letter grade. Late assignments, I do accept late assignments if you turn them in before I return assignments. I don't know how we'll return assignments for an online class, but we'll work it out. If the assignment is late, the first day it's late, there will be a 25% penalty for the late assignment. After that, there's a 50% late assignment till I return the assignment or until finals week. I do not take late assignments during finals week. And if I return graded assignments to the students, I will not accept a late assignment. Student conduct, you should read about that. Essentially, no cheating, no plagiarizing. With plagiarizing, if you're using somebody else's work and you're using more than 3 words that came from them, then you should, in an assignment, type in where you got it, like from so-and-so, put it in quotes, and put the what you quoted in quotes, and then say it was from so-and-so. If you don't do that, that's plagiarism, and you will score 0 for that assignment. If I do find that you cheat on an assignment, I will also give you 0 for that assignment. Etiquette in Zoom, please be professional when you're in Zoom. Any disruptive or unacceptable comments or behavior are prohibited, and I'll give you a 10% subtraction on the next assignment or the assignment that it happened, and I'll also just kick you out of the Zoom session. There's some suggested study methods. You should read this over. If you feel stressed, especially in the middle of the term, come and talk to me. Plan on spending about 14 hours of class, outside of class, 14 hours outside of class, working on microbiology, plus about 7 hours in class, that's for the lecture and the labs, per week. So that's about 21 hours a week that you'll be spending on microbiology. And if you find that you cannot spend these hours on microbiology, then it might be a good idea for you to delete this class, or what do they call that? It's not withdraw during the first week, withdraw after the first week, so that you can take microbiology during the term when you'll be able to spend it. Now, this is the average time that students spend on microbiology. If you were a student who has like photographic memory, you might be able to spend less time than 21 hours. I've got a number of suggestions for studying. I'll just mention one thing, and that is I sent out, just emailed it today, a study schedule where you plan out your weekly schedule, and if it changes, you can make another tab. And then on the log tabs, fill in when you plan to study during week 1, week 2, week 3. And if there are different weeks, you can make it a, like you're planning on studying more in the end of the class, you can put that in. Hopefully you didn't hear that. Somebody just slammed the door. For that extra credit assignment, that'll be worth 10 points. It's just for you to start thinking about how you want to fit this class into your schedule. And then email it to me. I don't remember when that's due. I think that's due midnight of Thursday of this week. Another extra credit assignment is you can send me a picture of your face. If you don't have a picture you can send me, just take one on a phone or get somebody who has a phone and submit it to the Canvas website for the extra credit picture. And I think you'll find that in the lecture schedule on Canvas under week 1. And I've got other suggestions for studying. I got 8 suggestions here. Let's talk a little bit about grading. How you will be graded is very first, there's a plagiarism quiz. You must take an online plagiarism. It's how to use references, and it's a site the library at Clark College developed. And go through that tutorial, and then afterwards take the plagiarism quiz. The quiz will be worth 20 points. The tutorial and the quiz have to be done by midnight on Saturday of this week. You may take the quiz for 5 times. You must score 100% on this quiz. Like I said, you can retake it 5 times. And almost every student has gotten 100%. Every student I've ever had has gotten 100% after they've retaken it a couple of times, because it'll be the same questions. If you don't score 100% on this quiz, then you'll get 0 points for the infectious disease research project. That is worth 100 points. Any questions about any of that? Okay, so let's move on. There will also be quizzes. There will be 5 quizzes. There'll be 50 points each, but the lowest quiz will be dropped. So that means 4-point quizzes will count, and that's worth 200 points. The quizzes will be about 15 questions. They will be given online, and you can check the schedule in the back of the syllabus for when they are due. When they are due, you have to take the quizzes within 24 hours before they are due, and you cannot take them at any other time. What should I say about that?
Professor, I have a question.
Yes.
As far as quizzes go and tests and like study material, obviously looking into chapter 1, there's a lot of material. I did print out a lot of things that you had provided us, such as chapter 1 notes. Would you recommend that the notes section that you have provided us is sufficient enough for us to do well on the quizzes, or is there more material you want us to look at?
If there's more material that I want you to look at, I will make that available to you.
Okay.
Okay? The quizzes will only be, quote, in the lecture, but they will have both lecture and lab materials for the quizzes.
Okay.
So there's only 5 quizzes for the entire course, and it'll be containing questions both from the lab and for the lecture. The majority, I would say, about 10 will be from the lecture and about 5 from the lab. 5 questions, about. I've got it quizzes and worksheets for the lab material, but in reality, there will only be worksheets for the lab material. There will be about 1 worksheet that you turn in for each lab. There will be a total of 100 points for these worksheets for the lab. And what you do is you just answer mostly questions on the worksheets and then submit it for the 100 points. I will go through them and I'll be reading your answers. I won't be like if you misspell something or you leave out 1 word in an answer in a sentence, I won't mark you down, but I will read through the answers. Generally, if it's about the right answer, you'll get 100 points on the worksheets. Let's say 100%. So if each one is worth 5, then you'll get 5 points for that worksheet. Now, some of the labs, especially in the later, there will be a worksheet and then a supplemental material that will be turned in. It's not exactly a worksheet, but it'll be close to it. So a few of them will have more than 1 thing you're turning in for the lab. And I think that's labs 8 and 9. All right. There's also going to be an identification of the unknown bacteria. This will be 100 points of the lab. You will be given an unknown bacteria, and you will be attempting to identify it, and you'll learn more about that. It'll be due near the end of the term, and I'll give you the material and the instructions, I'll give that to you. I think the instructions are up online, but that week is closed probably now. But you'll get more about that when we discuss it. The same thing with the infectious disease research project. It's a 100-point lab project. Essentially, you're going to be researching a pathogenic microorganism and submitting a report. More information will be contained in a separate package. And the due dates for both of these projects are in the syllabus. And you'll get more about those when we talk about them in the lab. There's also a cumulative final exam. It's worth 150 points. It'll be multiple choice and fill in the blank questions with about 20% of the questions coming from the lab and the identification of your unknown, about 50% from the material from the last 2 weeks of the lecture. So the majority will be the last 2 weeks of the lecture, and that's because you won't have any quiz material on those last 2 weeks. And about 30% of the material from material that have been presented throughout the class in both the lecture and the lab. The final also will be an exam held online, and it must be taken within a 24-hour period, and it will be the last day of the class. So I think that'll be Thursday of week 9 of the class. If you miss the final exam, there's no makeup, and that'll be a major points, like I said, 150 points. So if you take the normal class, I've got a table here. The plagiarism quiz worth 20 points, 5 quizzes, but you're dropping 1, so worth 200 points. Lab assignments, mostly worksheets, worth 100 points. the identification of the unknown project, the lab project with 100 points, the infectious disease project, 100 points, the lecture worksheets, that'll be about 1. You know, I don't think I talked about that. Is that up there? Ah, yeah, I did talk about it. Okay. Lecture worksheets, there'll be about 1 for each lecture. And I'm talking about each lecture day, so that'll be worth 100 points. And the final one at 150 points, so a grand total of 770 points. Now, as you notice, with all these assignments being done, the lecture worksheets will be due on the week that that lecture worksheet is made available for that lesson. In some weeks, we will be having, well, most weeks you'll be having 2 lecture weeks worksheets. In the labs, in some lab weeks, we'll be having, gosh, we might be having at least 3 labs. So there might be 3 worksheets that are due in a lab in a week. And then the quizzes with the due dates. It's not a very online class, and you probably noticed that. Clark College was not really an online institution, and we were forced to go online. And so the schedule is set up really for an in-person class. And I'm sorry about that, but that's the way Clark College went. And I do notice that that is not a very online class. And if you want it to be more online, I'm prepared to talk to you about it. Essentially, I can make it more online, and that is changing it so that you're going to only be graded on the plagiarism quiz, so that stays. The identification of the unknown, the infectious disease project, each worth 100 points. And then you'll get a 200-point midterm instead of the quizzes, and all of the worksheets, both from the lecture and the lab. And there will be a final worth 350 points. So this online class will not have any of these deadlines except for the plagiarism quiz, the identification of the unknown, the infectious disease project, and then a midterm deadline, and then a final deadline. I want to warn you that about 98% of students score much higher on worksheets and other assignments than they would on questions in an exam. But if you want in a more online class where you don't have all these deadlines, which really will be each week, then I will make it online for you this way. Okay? So if you want to have the class more online, this is my proposal to you. Please let me know in an email that you want to go that way in week 1. And once you commit to going online, you have to stay that way, meaning I'm not going to let you switch back and forth. So by week 1, if you want to go online, send me an email and I will grade you online. Okay? And your points will be different in the grade book. I'll try and make it available to you at the end of the term so you can see what your grades are in the grade book. But you will be graded on a different system. Okay? Now, like I said, I'm going to warn you that most students will do better on worksheets, which you can look up the answer, write in the answer, and then submit it, rather than have an exam question. But if you want the class to be more online, this is my proposal. Okay, so think about that. And if you want to go that way, email me in week 1 and realize you're going to be committed. I'm going to hold you to that. So that's pretty much the point breakdown. Let me say that there are some extra credit assignments. There will be 30 points worth of extra credit assignments. Check on Canvas or the email. I sent you one in email. I don't think I made that study guide available on Canvas. I'll try and make that available on Canvas. There's the send me the picture. Oh, let me mention with the picture, the only thing it'll be used is for my grade book. It won't even be put on the grade book in Canvas. That's so that I'll see your smiling face and I'll associate your face with your name. And for me, that's the best way that I've found for learning names. Okay. And that'll be an extra credit assignment. Another extra credit assignment is you can form a study group and then submit study, quiz each other for half an hour or more, and then submit that. And that's available on Canvas if you want to read more about that. All right. Any questions about the grading? Looks like no questions. So Victoria, did you have a question? You gotta turn on your mic. On the
Okay.
bottom left. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So from my understanding, we have the option to choose what you explained, the whole grading criteria to earn 770 points, and that's those points include the worksheets and the assignments, and also that's a little bit, that's kind of like your in-class kind of grading criteria, right?
Yes.
And then we have the option to just choose the unknown project, infectious disease, and then just the 200-point midterm, and then the 350 final, right?
And a plagiarism quiz. Yes.
Oh, okay. And how would how are the exams going to look? Are they open book? Are they in front of the Zoom camera? Like, I just want to know, because I haven't done this type of stuff before, so this is very foreign for me, as I know to many.
The quizzes and exams will be online.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No, you will not take them with Zoom. They will be online. And I want to say there's going to be two types of quizzes, but I don't want to talk about that yet. But I guess it was answered, so I will. And that is, some of the quizzes will be easier questions, and they will be multiple choice. These quizzes will be timed. So if I give you 15 questions, you will only have 20 minutes to finish that quiz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because you could, on these questions, easily look up an answer, maybe even two. But if you spend more time looking up answers, you'll run out of time. And then you will miss quiz questions. So the point is, how I'm keeping you from looking up the answers is their time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to know, because I wasn't sure, how this is gonna work out. So.
Okay. Other quizzes, like I imagine the final will be this way, and other quizzes will be open book, and they will not be timed, but they won't be easy answers. They will be questions where you can't answer with a single word. You can't look up the answer. There will be thinking questions
For the labs.
where oftentimes there will not be one answer, meaning multiple answers could work, but you have to know the material in order to answer the question. Okay? But those quiz questions will not be timed, and I'll have to make the quizzes all one way or the other, because
Okay.
I can't mix it.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
All right. So some of the quizzes will be, I will call it thinking questions, and they will not be timed, because I realize it may take you a long time to answer a single question. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to think about it. You might have to look up certain material and then write up your answer. And it won't be, like I said, a single word answer.
Okay.
Okay. So that's how the exams are going to be. But all the exams will be online. I will not be there to look over your shoulder or anything like that. And we talked about having proctored exams, and they were going to do that somehow online. And microbiology just decided we're not going that way. Okay. Although other biology classes are going that way.
Okay. And also, what's the biggest difference between the first grading point system, which is the 770 points, and the other grading point system, which is like the online, which is probably the same amount of points, but like
It's the
what's
same number of points, 770 points. The major difference is there will be fewer assignments and fewer deadlines for the online class. That's the major difference. Another major difference is you're going to be graded mostly on quiz questions for the online class.
okay?
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. For these other topics, I'm going to ask you to read them, questions, reviews, proper microscope use in the lab. Support services for students. Clark College has a lot of support for students. I don't know how they're going to do it this term, but that's not my concern. Like, I know the library is open and the librarians are available, but how they're going to do it, I don't know. But they're going to be doing it. So if you need those support services, they will have it available for you. My understanding is the tutoring services are all going to be online. And I believe they're still hiring students to do the tutoring services. And I've heard they're going to be having a tutor who's going to tutor for microbiology. So read about that material. I'll state that I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to be having the college-wide support for students, like giving out groceries. They're still going to have that, and food stamps and stuff like that. And I've got links for both Washington students and Oregon students. And the college is still going to be doing that. I don't know how they're going to do it this term, but we're going to have it. So read about it and look into it if you need it. Please read about the non-discrimination policy, the school emergency procedures. They're important, but I'm not going to discuss them because they're not terribly important. The safety information for students and physicians. You're not going to be meeting in the lab, but we are going to hold you responsible for knowing the safety information for a microbiology lab. And I'll talk more about that when we discuss the lab at 6:30 today. So just read over it. And I will state that there will be lab questions for the safety of working in the lab, although you're not actually going to be in the lab, everything will be online. Words of advice and comfort, let me briefly go over that. Sometimes it'll seem like your instructors are your enemies, although we do need to maintain standards. Please don't consider us your enemies. We can't always accommodate you because we have to keep these standards, but all of us want you to succeed. If we were not instructors, we would not want you to succeed. Meaning it's part of coming with being an instructor that we want you to succeed. If you have concerns, complaints, other problems, please let me know. The earlier the better. We can meet on Zoom or we can discuss it with his email. Please don't let them fester because they'll only get worse. And I do realize that we're all dealing with COVID-19 and this can raise the stress level. I'm sure most of you have not had a biology class online, and so please don't stress out about that. And I will keep this in mind when you come to me, and I will try and be accommodating. I want everyone to be successful and maybe even to find some enjoyment in the class. All right, more laboratory safety rules and guidelines. Like I said, you do need to know them, and I'll talk more about them when we discuss the lab. All right, so this is a tentative course schedule. In this term, it is very tentative because this is an online class, and so the microbiology instructors may decide that the schedule isn't working and go about and change it. my hope is that we will not, and as far as I know, there's no errors in the schedule, but that could also be something that could happen. And I'm just stating that it might change, especially this term. On the right side, there's the laboratory schedule. I'll talk more about that when we talk about the lab at 6:30. So let me talk about the lecture schedule. I've got highlighted or in blue for the lab when things are due. So actually the first week should have in there that the Plagy quiz is due. My apologies, that's not in here. The Plagy quiz is due Saturday of week 1. Thursday of week 1 is the extra credit assignment, which none of the extra credit assignments are, they're not on the schedule here. So please keep that in mind. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about that? Anyways, the schedule is here, and week 1, we'll talk about the overview of the syllabus, which I'm doing now. We'll talk about scientific vocabulary. Chapter 1, the microbial world and you. Hopefully we'll get started on that. And chapter 1 also includes chapter 10. You know, this meeting has gone on for more than 40 minutes. That's curious. It was supposed to only go for 40 minutes. Let's go ahead and stay here since we're all here. Let me finish talking about the syllabus. This has really been lengthy. I'm sorry about that. What happened? Sorry, I just lost my link here. And we'll take a short break in a few minutes. There will be a practice quiz, which has not been made yet, which will be due Tuesday of week 2. And this will just be a practice online quiz. And it'll just help you for doing online quizzes. And like I said, this has to be made yet, so there's no link for that. And that due date isn't up there on the Canvas website, but hopefully we'll get that done before week 1. The first quiz will be due during week 3, and that'll be quiz 1. Let's scroll down to the bottom. Oops, well, I'm not at the normal site. Hopefully that doesn't break for you, but this broke. The final exam will be Thursday, June 18th. It'll be at the same time, 5 o'clock. Let me see, I've got a meeting notice here. Well, somebody's doing chat.
That's me, Professor. I'm trying to see if I could get a study group ahead of
Okay,
time.
that's fine. You can talk to each other about that. Note that I don't have the lecture and lab worksheets. Generally, the worksheet will be due, all the worksheets for that week will be due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. of that week. And every lecture will have at least one worksheet. So let's go up to week 1. There's one worksheet on chapter 1 for Tuesday, and there will probably be one for chapter 1 and 10 on Thursday as well. So there will be 2 worksheets due on Saturday of this week. Any questions about that? All right, so the worksheets are not on the schedule, but I have a note down there saying that there will be worksheets due every week for that lecture and lab. And they're all due at Saturday at 11:59 p.m. of that week. Okay? Any questions about that? If not, let's come back at 6 o'clock and we'll start on the lesson 1, the microbial world in you. Okay, so go ahead and take a 6-minute break and we'll come back. Okay? All right. I should note, you probably shouldn't log out, just go walk away or mute your thing. Huh. Okay, is anyone there? I'm going to re-begin. It looks like everybody's gone, but hopefully somebody's there. I want to take a look at the second lecture meeting and see if anyone showed up there. Hopefully nobody did, because this first meeting is going on. I don't know if it'll work on the second computer, but hopefully nobody's there. Anyways, I'm prepared to start. And it looks like nobody's at the second meeting. Oh, it won't start the other meeting, so we'll cancel that. And it looks like the other meeting isn't going because we're still in this meeting. All right, let's start. I know you can't see this, but I'll get it there. Oh gosh, that didn't work. In the show. Screen share. There we go. All right, I didn't know I worked from there. So hopefully you guys can see this screen. Microbiology, Chapter 1, the microbial world in you. Chapter 10, we're only covering a little bit of Chapter 10, the classification of microorganisms. I always start each lesson with a slide presenting the major goals for this lesson and a rough outline. Now, in the major goals, you do need to learn more than just the major goals. These are the major goals, not all the goals that you need to learn. And if you want to know all of the objectives you must learn, then take a look at my notes on Canvas. And at the very start, or sometimes in a separate file, I have the objectives. So sometimes I'll have a page giving the objectives for that lesson, and then the next page will be the notes. But most of the time I have one page that gives both the objectives at the start and then is followed by the notes. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Major terms you should know what a microbe is, a microorganism, a germ, a pathogen, a parasitic organism, microbiota, infectious disease, emerging infectious disease, pasteurization, Koch's postulates. These are only the major terms you should learn in this chapter. We'll also talk about the brief history of microbiology. That'll be on Thursday, and the importance of microbes. We'll start that one now. So here you're looking at the nitrogen cycle. I don't know if you can see the nitrogen all over there, but it starts in the atmosphere. It's fixed by bacteria and archaea into organic compounds, which can be degraded, decomposed by bacteria and archaea into ammonia and ammonium, which green plants and algae can use, but they don't like it. And ammonia and ammonium can be changed by bacteria and archaea into nitrite, which other bacteria can change into nitrate. And green plants and algae really love that. Nitrates you can find in, I'm getting a note here. I don't know what that was. Let me stop the share and see if somebody's trying to join the meeting. Sorry, I'm not good at Zoom, so. Well, I'm not seeing anything here now. I'm not sure what that was about. Let's go back to the screen share. Sorry about that. Nitrate is in fertilizer, and green plants really love it. The green plants, then when they die, decomposed, some of that will go into ammonium, others will be organic compounds, which can be changed back to nitrate or ammonia. And then the cycle can continue. And then with nitrates, some bacteria can take nitrates and put it back into nitrogen in the atmosphere. The important part of this is that when we look at the steps in the nitrogen cycle, that microbes are responsible for this step we see that most of the steps in the nitrogen cycle, they're happening because of microorganisms doing that step. Wherever we have a red arrow, that means that microorganisms are doing that step. And as you can see, almost every step is in the nitrogen cycle is happening because of microorganisms, meaning that microorganisms are extremely important in the nitrogen cycle. Any questions about that? When we look at microorganisms, we can see that some of them can eat rocks. They're right-eating microbes. All right, got that? Somebody just joined the meeting now. Some microorganisms actually obtain their nutrients from rocks. And when they do that, they break down the rocks, leading to the formation of soil. Now, please understand that microorganisms are not the primary way that soil is made, like erosion is, but you don't need to know that for this class. But you do need to know that some microorganisms can help break down rocks, leading to the formation of soil. So microorganisms are important in generating soil. Any questions about that? When we look at the, I'm really sorry that you can't see that. Somebody's coming to join the class. When you leave the class, try not to stop the class, because then I have to allow you to add. Anyways, or the oxygen, if you can't see it over here on the right, the oxygen level is about 20% today. And if we go back in time, the oxygen level decreases all the way down to about 2.7 billion years ago, where the oxygen level in the Earth's atmosphere was actually 0%. And for about 2 billion years, from whatever that is, 4.6 billion years to 2.7 billion years ago, the atmosphere had 0% oxygen in the atmosphere. And what happened at 2.7 billion years, something happened which was important and gave rise to the first oxygen in the atmosphere. And someplace around here, plants evolved, and that helped bring up the oxygen level today. And the point is that what happened right here, 2.7 billion years ago to 1.8 billion years ago, the evolution of photosynthesizing microorganisms occurred that put out oxygen. And when they engaged in photosynthesis at this point, they were creating oxygen, and that's why oxygen started accumulating in the Earth's atmosphere up to about here, where green plants evolved. And then with green plants and microorganisms, that is why we have the Earth's atmosphere about 20% oxygen level from the combination of both microorganisms and green plants. And essentially, about half of that oxygen is coming from microorganisms. Any question about that? Once again, pointing out how important microorganisms are to the planet Earth. Now, when we're looking at a sewage waste treatment plant, humans are responsible for generating this waste by flushing toilets, right? And you might think that humans are responsible for breaking down the waste. I mean, obviously, we built this to break down the waste, right? Well, that's not correct. Actually, humans don't break down any of this waste. It's the microorganisms which are breaking down the waste. All we did was build a facility and then allowed the microorganisms to break down the waste. So all of these sewage treatment plants are operating because of microorganisms breaking down the waste. And that's extremely important to us because otherwise we couldn't flush our toilets, right? So hopefully you've seen that microorganisms are extremely important to the planet Earth, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that was just an introduction showing you how important microorganisms are. Now let's talk a little bit more about what microorganisms are. There are organisms which are too small to be seen with the unaided eye. They're single-celled organisms, although some microorganisms can be more than single cells, and we'll talk about that. They come in many shapes and sizes. They include all bacteria, all archaea, all yeast, depending how you define molds. So we'll say most molds, all protozoans, some algae like the kelp that washes up on the Oregon shore and you can swing it around on your head. That is not a microorganism. That's a whatever it is. I don't know what it is. It's a multi-organism protist. And but the single-celled algae are microorganisms. And then all viruses and prions are microorganisms. The last two, viruses and prions, are special because they are not they're not organisms. They don't have cells, and you can debate whether they're alive or not. Sorry, I'm looking at the time here to make sure I don't go over. So they're special, the last two, and just learn that viruses and prions are special. You can debate about whether they're alive or not. Actually, prions, nobody would agree that they're alive, but viruses, some people do, and some people say, no, they're not, and we're not going to get into that argument. All the other things are microorganisms which are alive, and all the others, meaning bacteria, archaea, yeast, molds, protozoans, and some algae are alive and are microbes. They're almost everywhere, so we can say that they are the ubiquity of microorganisms. You can find them essentially almost everywhere. They play beneficial roles in numerous processes on the earth, and I talked about a few of those earlier. And they're numerically the most abundant life forms on the planet Earth. Now, I mentioned about cells. Let's briefly talk about what is a cell. A cell is the basic functional and structural unit of all organisms. They are highly organized and compartmentalized parts of cells. They are all bounded by a thin, flexible structure that we call the plasma membrane, also called the cell membrane. And here you're looking at some cells over here. Do you guys see the my pointer? Yes, okay, good. They contain three components. Cells always have three components. They always have the cell membrane, they always have a cytoplasm, and they always have DNA for their genome. Here you're looking at bacterial cells. When we talk about microorganisms, I mentioned they are ubiquitous. And if you look at these pictures, this one here, and this one here, and this one here, and this one here, and this one here, you can find microorganisms everywhere. Every inch, every half inch of this lake, in the water, in the rocks, in the air, even in the clouds there, every inch will have a microorganism. They float around in the air, the microorganisms. You'll find it in the water, every inch. You find it in the soil. This might be down 20 feet, and you would find at least one microorganism every half inch, okay? You find it in every half inch of the skin of the cat, the hair of the cat, the skin of the person here, the sweater of the person. You find it in every half inch of sand in the desert as well as in the air. You find it in the rocks of this cliff. Now this is a volcanic vent. You'd find it in the air. You would not find microorganisms in the lava of this volcanic vent. This would be too hot for microorganisms. But everywhere else, you'll find microorganisms. So you find them almost everywhere. Any questions about that? Where is everywhere? You find microorganisms in any environment where there's land and water in the atmosphere, and you can go up a mile in the atmosphere and still find microorganisms. After about a mile, the microorganisms disappear. You can find them below the surface of both the land and the ocean, and you can go once more about a mile before you don't run into microorganisms under the land and under the ocean. And when I talk about under the ocean, I'm talking about the ocean floor, not the water ocean. I'm talking about underneath the ocean floor. You can go down about a mile and still find microorganisms. You'll find microorganisms with all plants and animals, including us. They're essentially everywhere where liquid water is present, and they will be alive at temperatures between about a minus 20 degrees Celsius. Remember, 0 degrees Celsius is when water freezes, and about 120 degrees Celsius. At 100 degrees is the temperature the water boils. So you can find living microorganisms above the temperature of boiling water. And this is about the temperature in Fahrenheit that you can find microorganisms. Now, below this degrees Fahrenheit, you can find microorganisms, but they'll be frozen, and you'd have to thaw them out before they'd be alive. And at above 250 degrees Fahrenheit, all microorganisms will die. Is that true? 120 degrees, no, some endospores would even survive this for brief periods of time. But so let's say that you don't find any living organisms at above 120 degrees Celsius. But there are certain endospores that could survive this temperature for a limited amount of time. And those are endospores. We'll talk about endospores later in the term. Microbes are numerically the most abundant life form on Earth. And how many microorganisms you find? Microorganisms are prokaryotes. Actually, that's not entirely true. Bacteria is a prokaryote. You can find about 10 to the 8th microorganisms in 1 gram of soil. In a millimeter of ocean water, you would, actually I'm going to skip on because we're running out of time. You'd find less, about 10 to the 6th microorganisms. In human feces, if the feces are totally dry, you will find about 10 to the 6th microorganisms. Of course, most of us don't have dry feces, totally dry. This would be like defecation in the desert, and you come and see it like 3 days afterwards. It'd be totally dry. Most of the microorganisms are dead. If it's a very fresh feces, okay, you'll find, what is that, 10 to the 9, 10, so 10 to the 11th in human feces. On a human, that's not showing there, what is that? 3.8 times 10 to the 13th microorganisms on a human. And the entire world, you'll get 1 times 10 to the 30th, which is a nonillion microorganisms on the entire planet Earth. For comparison, the human population is around a little over 7 billion. It's getting close to 8 billion people. All right, any questions about that? Astounding numbers on the total number of microorganisms you can find in these areas. Now, with that said, there are some microorganisms which are pathogenic. A pathogenic microorganism is one that is capable of causing disease. You should make a note of that because that's not on this slide. A pathogenic microbe is one that causes disease. Most microorganisms do not cause disease. Only a small percentage are pathogenic. It's something like 1 or 2% of microorganisms are pathogenic or disease causing. Okay? And then the last slide for today, let me state that we can divide diseases into infectious diseases, which we will be studying, and inherited diseases. Infectious disease is one that's caused by a microorganism. and that's why it's infectious. What are some examples? Can somebody turn on your microphone and give me an example? An inherited disease is one that is caused by the genetics that someone is born by. What's an infectious disease? Come on, somebody should know.
A flu or a virus.
Flu or a virus are infectious disease.
MERS.
COVID-19, what else?
MERS, Middle East Respiratory
Oh,
Syndrome.
yes, MERS, okay. Yes. Corynebacterium diphtheria, another one.
Mad cow disease.
There's many. How about an inherited disease?
Congenital heart failure.
Congenital heart failure. Tay-Sachs disease.
Blindness is technically a
Blindness could be, assuming the person doesn't have damage to their eyes that's caused by something they do, yes.
Huntington's disease.
Huntington's disease.
Down syndrome.
Down syndrome, that's definitely inherited.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, that's about it. Are there any questions for today? All right, I'll see you in the lab at 6:30. That's 9 minutes from now. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to end this session and hopefully I'll post it, okay, to my website. How do I stop this? Here we go. There we go, in the meeting.